Hey everyone, this is Elon. I'm here with my buddy James, and I brought James on just because we've had a lot of interesting conversations, off the podcast. And I'm always looking for people who have an interesting perspective on masculinity, on fatherhood. And so I wanted you to come on and just share your thoughts. So if you want to give everyone a little background about yourself, your upbringing, uh, you know, your experiences, that would be awesome to get started.
Oh, absolutely. I was born and raised in Michigan, Marine City, but I think it's like about an hour north of Detroit, and left, when I was 19. But my upbringing was, it was a very rough childhood. I had a alcoholic, abusive father who had narcissistic tendencies. Abused my mom, abused us. Uh, Countless times we went to the CPS and nothing was done back in the day. And when I was in my early teenage years, I knew that it was wrong, from a masculine, point of view, because I knew that I wasn't, proud of, I wasn't, felt loved. And I wanted to be like my dad. Every boy wants to be like their dad. So you would do these things to try to please your father, but it never mounted to anything, because with people with narcissistic tendencies, it's all about them and their world. So I created myself a hard heart. I had zero friends, and I knew that if I joined the Navy and became something of myself, and at the time I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, because at that time, what I thought was, uh, they were the baddest guys on the planet, and no one would have hurt me, no one would abuse me, no one would mess with me. And so when I think it was like 3 months after high school, I joined the military and got into it. Found out the Navy SEALs was a lot harder than I imagined. So I had to wait 2 years to, even try out for the Buds class. And I was in Buds class 276. And at that time, with my ex-wife, she had a son, and his father wasn't around. And I fell in love with him. And I was there. I was his first words as dad. I'm not even his real father. And dad was me. And I got to watch his first steps. And then when I was in Buds, I could have continued on, but hypothermia got me. I rang out, and I was going to exit the military, but they gave me 2 more years. So in those 2 more years extended in the military, there were, I had to do counter piracy operations off the coast of Somalia. So seeing the depravity of mankind and man over there, what men are over there, for ransoms and, hijacking ships and coming back, and the mentality of who they were, I stepped up to the plate and did what we were supposed to do. And multiple guys that I'm still in contact with to this day, we knew what we had to do. And it was a great time. It was a great learning experience. Military was great, gave me structure, gave me an understanding, gave me a background in a job. And then, got saved, met Jesus, and then moved on from there. And then read, I think, 27 marriage books. I had multiple counselings sessions for 4 summers about who I am and what it is to be a masculine man, because I didn't know what masculinity looks like. Masculinity, I didn't understand at the time. It's not given, it's bestowed from a father to a son. A father bestows that to a son. And that's what I was longing for. So this journey of a life, being a young one with my memory, my father, in his genes, we have what's called an eidetic memory. It's not photographic, but it's eidetic. We can remember almost everything, but we don't have to relive the events over and over again like a photographic memory. So I can remember everything up until 3 years old, all these events, trauma, good, bad, or indifferent. And so even till this day, 34, about to be 35, I still remember it all. But I know the difference of what was, a broken man trying to raise children versus a man who understands love raising children.
You know, it's interesting. I interview a lot of people, and there's a lot of guys nowadays just growing up without dads. It's incredible how many people I interview who grew up without dads. And I mean, I look at the stats, and it's depending on the, uh, the nationality, what not nationality, ethnicity, I guess you could say. It's like African Americans, 70 to 75% grow up without dads. In white
Yeah, it's
communities, it's
ridiculous.
yeah, it's gone up 5 times in all communities. In the white community, it went up from 5% to 25%. So it's just an endemic issue. Did you in your life ever find someone to be a father figure for you? Did that ever become a part of your life?
Absolutely. Wow, that is a great question. So when I got saved, Jesus met me, found me. It was back in 2009. Uh, I was in a small group at a church, and I was with these guys at a church. And of course, there were some things and events that were going on, taking place. And there was one man who spoke up and spoke truth. And that guy scared the life out of me. Lo and behold, he's the softest guy you would ever meet. But from then on, his name is Steve Tresser. He's out in California, San Diego. And we have not stopped talking ever since then. And he has taken me under his wing and demonstrated and taught me what real masculinity is look like. I mean, there's days where he calls me. I mean, it could be the simplest thing that I have accomplished. I mean, it could be like I mowed the lawn, and he would be like, "I'm proud of you." And I've never heard those words. Never heard those words, coming from my father. I mean, the only thing I've ever really wanted from my father is, hey, I have a hug and say, "I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're my son." And I get to be this for this guy. And my youngest son is named after him because the impact that he has put on my life and demonstrated in my life. And there's one other man, his name's Matt Montgomery. He was a pastor when I was 16. I went to this church with my grandmother. I was living with my grandmother. So when I was in high school, we traveled. We lost our home when I was in 10th grade, and I lived from home to home to home in 10th grade without my father. So my mother had to figure out how to do all this stuff with, 4 kids. And we went to a church where I ended up living in my grandmother's basement, which is my father's mother. And I met Matt at this church, and Matt spoke truth. He spoke so much truth that they kicked him out of the church because he was speaking so much truth and confronting people. And he's still to this day, speaking truth and living real masculinity. And I think me and him reconnected 2 years ago, and he's a father figure to me. And we picked up right where we left off. And he is constantly encouraging and emboldening me to do better. But also when I'm making mistakes, they don't have a problem calling me out. These men have told me hard things, confronted me with the mess that I am. And the one thing that they both have told me throughout the years, and I think this is a flaw in society, is that men aren't teachable. They have a problem with correction, being told what to do and when to do it. And then when they make a mistake, they're called out and they're like, "Oh, you're offending me." Well, pride and mistakes are like bad BO. Everyone knows you have it, but and you're not going to become the best you can be without someone else sharpening you and saying, "Hey, you're going down the wrong path, or you're turning the wrong corner. Hey, let's go back this way." And it's as simple as that. Sometimes you have to have hard words, and hard words make soft people, but soft words make hard people. So there's been many, many a times that these men have, corrected me, taught me, and also a lot of soft words and building me up. So yeah, Matt and Steve have been the two men that I rely on to this day. And the only time I've seen my father since leaving for the military was 2 years ago when my wife and I got married. That was the first time, and I haven't spoke to him since. So yeah, it's an epidemic in the society now where fatherless children and the father role is very important. And I take great pride in being a dad and being a husband.
Well, it's just nice because you grew up without it, and then you confronted that part of yourself, and you said, "I don't want to be that. I want to be better." And like
Absolutely.
a lot of people go down the other path. I'm wondering if there's something I talk about a lot about, which is rites of passage for young men, especially young men who don't have masculine figure in their life to look up to. Like you said, we all need that correction. Do you feel like the
Yeah.
military in terms of like the intermittent before you met these father figures, do you feel like the military was a rite of passage for you? Do you feel like it gave you that kind of connection to, I can prove myself here, I can be around other men
Mhm.
here?
Yeah, because there's stages in men's life. So I read a good book called Fathered by God, and in it talks about the stages of a man, stages of a man's life. I mean, from ages 1 to 9, you're in the cowboy stage. Everyone's all about superheroes. Everyone wants to be this superhero, and they want to be brave, and they want to have this adventure. I mean, you see an 8-year-old, they're out. I mean, driving in the yard, digging holes, and they're gone. They're having their own little adventure, and then they start hitting puberty, and they start entering this warrior stage. Proving themselves, and that usually lasts until about 22, 23 years old. And that's when I entered the military when I was 19. So I'm at peak of warrior stage. Then you got the lover stage enters with that, but you can't be a lover unless you know how to be a warrior, and those two conflict. They do conflict at those that age and stage in life, because they, instead of conquering what they need to conquer, which means leaving your house, getting a job, being responsible, taking care of your finances, doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that's the adventure. They make the woman the adventure, and so the woman doesn't want to be the adventure. She wants to be part of the adventure. So that's where it gets mixed up. And of course, I got mixed up in that with my ex-wife, and prior to that. And then there's king, the stage of kingship, having this kingdom, your home, your family, raising a family, your job, your finances, and reigning over that. And then there's sage, having this, sage is the one who advises the kings. And right now, my sages are Matt and Steve, guys who speak into me, guys who've lived this life for, 30, 40, 50 years, have been married for 50 years, and understand what it is to be masculine in a world that masculinity has been so frowned upon because it's mansplaining, and it's not. So yeah, that was a rite of passage, going through the military, proving that I have what it takes. Because that's the dawning question in every man's heart. Do I have what it takes? So yes, going through that with my ex-wife. And I mean, on your podcast, I'm full exposure. I mean, I don't have a problem, putting everything out there. I slept on the couch for 6 years being married, and prayed and worked on me because I thought something was wrong with me, but it wasn't. I've read books, I went through counseling, and I met with men, and I stayed with good men, and they've raised me up to the man that I am today. So, of course, my wife gets the byproduct of, years and years of training of what it is to be a man. And it's a good thing.
I always say that there's a difference between masculinity and being a man. You know what I mean? You have to
Yeah.
own being a
Yeah.
man. You have to earn it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. You absolutely. So this is a great verse. Those who are listening, who believe in, Christianity or religion or not, this is a verse I go by, and it's 1 Timothy 5:8, and it's burned in my brain. And it says, if a man does not provide for his family, he has denied his faith and become worse than an unbeliever. It's his family and his relatives. So I'm not providing for my aunts and uncles. That's not going to happen. Sorry. I'm going to take care of my wife and kids. You have to earn this daily. Being a masculinity is a daily thing. Dying daily, loving daily, and doing this daily. I mean, there's times where, you don't want to step into the, conversations with the wife, but you do, because she needs it. There's times where you don't want to discipline the children because it's the same old thing, but you do because you love them. And love is not a feeling. Love is an action. The description of love is an act, and it's an adjective. It's moving. I think that's what it is. Adjectives are moving. Yeah, but it's moving.
Yeah,
Love is
adjectives are
moving.
actions. Yeah.
Yeah, love is an action,
And
it's by demonstration.
Well, like I always respect the trait. The trait I respect the most in people is when people seek the uncomfortable because they know it's right. In other words, like you said, the conversation with your wife that day might not be the thing you want to do, but it's the thing that's right to do to help your relationship. Disciplining your
Yep.
kids might be not be the thing. They have to look at you that day as a father and not a friend, and that makes people
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And nowadays we've
Yep.
created a society where we're teaching people like, no, don't offend, appease, everyone has to get along.
Yep.
And that's taken the priority over no. And this is something you touched on talking with me privately. You're like the importance of responsibility, and that supersedes all other things. Your responsibility
Yeah.
as a father, your responsibility as a husband to you, I know this about you, supersedes anything else. um
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got goosebumps even thinking about my responsibility right now. I take such pride in being what it is in this society because the world doesn't teach this. They don't teach this in college. They just teach you to get a degree. They don't teach this in high school. They just teach you this indoctrination stuff. Responsibility is key. And I have learned, to be, content where I'm at, but also what it means to be responsible through hard times. And I saw a life of a lack of responsibility with my father, my mother, um, of how they lived their life and how the ramifications of their choices affected us as children. Even if they weren't abusing us, they were abusing each other. And still that wasn't responsible enough because they didn't understand that their actions impacted us, seeing my, mother and father abuse each other and still left scars and wounds for years later. you know
and
Responsibility.
kids learn
Oh,
that behavior.
absolutely.
People are like, oh well, I wasn't abused. I'm like, but if you saw someone get abused or you saw fighting growing up your whole life, that framed your perception of how to act and treat people.
If your foundation of love and how love and secure connecting with love is flawed, everything else is going to be flawed. If you're taught that it's okay to, you see your father or your mother hitting each other, cussing each other out, no, that's just normal, then it's flawed because that's not how it's designed. My role and my responsibility comes first. My role in my household is I'm to love my wife as Christ loved the church. And people are like, well, what does that mean? It means I have to die. I have to give up everything that I want to do first. She comes first. And it's her needs over mine. And it's like our bodies need food. When you're hungry, well, love is the same way. Give her the same love that what it is when she needs food. That's it. My role is to take care of her first, and then is to take care of my children, and then also to be financially, taken care of. It is not just to go out and you have a paycheck. I'm going to go blow it on a TV. Give me a break.
It's
You
funny.
got you got to take care of your four. You got to take care of your four walls. Food, transportation, housing, and utilities.
It's so basic, but it's interesting. I had another guy on the podcast recently who said that too. So he was like, I'm not the most built guy in the world. I'm not the toughest guy. He's like, I could protect my family. I've been doing martial arts my whole life, but I'm not the toughest guy. I'm not like the most muscular. I'm not a bodybuilder covered in tattoos. He's like, but that's not what makes a man. He goes, when I teach
No.
my kids what makes a man, he's like, it's that I'm going to be there. It's that I'm going to provide for them financially and teach them how to be financially responsible. These are things that we overlook. Like when we think about masculinity, a lot of people think about like the physical trait of like, oh, I'm strong, but you're a super strong
Yeah.
dude. I know you, and you are a very
Yeah.
physically strong guy. You are a tough guy, but you're also vulnerable. You're also willing to look at these other things in life
I
that matter.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at my physical physique and you can look at the things, that I post on Instagram. That's the only thing I have left. And, for social media, because, I believe that social media is completely manipulated and, they only tell you what you want to hear. And that's also what's, controlling society to nowadays. But I am absolutely vulnerable to the max. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't long for correction. I don't long for correction. I hate it. Absolutely hate correction in the moment. But the fruit of it is absolutely beautiful. I with being vulnerable, being able to go to those spots, I can relate to people. I can empathize with people and I can understand people, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, because you've been through it. Hold on one second. My camera just went crazy.
No, I saw it's good, man.
There we are. We're
You're
back.
you're back. You're back.
Do you mind me asking you about your time in the military? You said you were in Somalia. Just how that impacted you, seeing some of the stuff you saw in terms of framing your perception of reality. Because I think a lot of people grow up in the United States. I always say this. I always say people don't understand the world. That's why a lot of people
No.
get upset over things they get upset with in this country. Don't
Mm-hmm.
understand what it's like elsewhere. And
Oh, all right. So when I never got to go to, I was off the coast of Somalia dealing with pirates. I've been to Djibouti, Africa, and driving through there. We spent a few days in Djibouti, Africa. Kids, what I saw, when I was when I was on the ground, we were, doing some ops with, the locals in Egypt. They thought it was fun. It was their game. The translator told me it was a game to poke a dead camel in the middle of the street. And they don't have shoes on, dirt roads, no food, everything's run down. When I was in Yemen, we did a bunch of ops with people in Yemen, these Yemeni soldiers, and we're in these dried up lakes, and of course our ship couldn't dock close to Yemen because of the USS Cole incident off of the coast of Yemen. So we had to drive 30 miles in and bring all our recon guys in and medical team. And we're training these Yemeni soldiers in dried up lakes. And you see, I mean, it's ridiculously hot over there for the first point. And it's a dump. I mean, everything's run down. It's a dump. And you see families coming out of these boats in a dried up lake. There's holes in the side of these boats. I mean, they're run down wooden boats, and they're going over to the garbage heap, picking out food to eat. The kids are, and the wives. And there was a couple incidences where there was a I think it was a husband or a man hitting a woman, and it was perfectly normal. And it took everything I could not to engage, because I couldn't stand that, seeing that growing up. But I wasn't in America. And see, in America, we're fighting over the littlest frivolous thing. And in America, we do not understand what a gift and the greatness we have of having freedom, having the right to choose. Over there, they don't have a right to choose. In Yemen at the time, in 2010, when I was in, 87% of their fresh water supply was going to grow the a hallucinogen plant called khat, and it's COUGTE, and it looked like spinach leaves, and that's all they would do. And all these soldiers were on hallucinogens, and that's where their money was going. So we have a country that's free, and we're fighting over, and they're trying to establish this whole race war, and men are bad, and the women need to step up and lead. But statistically proven, fatherless children commit more damage and more danger in the world. If you ask any criminal, me and my wife watch a lot of crime shows, and the number one interview is, I never had a father.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
my father wasn't there. Never wasn't there.
20 times more likely is, I think, like the most
20 times more likely. So being present, see, children don't spell love and, hey, here's your tablet. Oh, here's a TV show. Let me go do what I'm supposed to do. No, you got to be present. You got to correct your children. You got to teach your children. You got to be there for your children. You got to encourage your children. Yes, it's going to take up some of your time, but you had children for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the whole point. You have a responsibility of being a parent. And, when it comes to that, children in the household, we are the parents. It's our home. We make the rules. You follow the rules based on what we've learned in our life. And you don't get to come in our house and dictate and tell us what we can and cannot do. You're not the parent. And so many kids to this day, you see, they're living in their basement, yelling at their moms to get them Hot Pockets so they can go back downstairs and play video games.
Did you know
it's like, give me a
Yeah, there's tons of people in their 30s still living at home. I'm like, man, I left home when I was first time I kind of like went to go live somewhere else. I was 16. I had to leave my house. And then, but I really moved away when I was like 19 or 20. I went out to live on my own completely. But I'm like, when I hear
Yeah,
35-year-olds are still living at home, unless you're bringing your parents to your house, and like in my culture, that's not uncommon where your parents, as they get old and can't take care of themselves, it's your obligation. And I like,
that's that's a beautiful, beautiful thing in society now. Is like, hey, let's just put them in nursing homes. No, 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 no. So
that
you can do
bothers
your
me
life
the
like that.
most.
That bothers me the most is because, my wife and I, we've already told her parents, when they get old and senile, they're here.
Mhm.
We're gonna take care of them until they move on to heaven. I mean, that's our responsibility. Like I got a relationship with her dad, and I have grown to love this man immensely. This man is by far if there's a third person to teach me what masculinity looks like, it's him. And I get to spend every day. He's 2 miles down the road.
Oh, that's
If I
awesome.
need him, he's 2 miles down the road. If I call him, say, hey, I need help, he'll come with all these years of experiences and teaching me things that I've never learned as a man from my father. And it's hands on. And his love language is serving and teaching. And so he loves to get to do it. And I'm loving the fact that I get to, learn something new because I don't know everything. I never claim that, and it's great.
Just
So
interesting.
it's a great journey.
It's interesting to me how different your life could have been just without like a few simple steps. And we know so many people who go down that path, whether it's like drug addiction, whether it's the crime, whether it's just, having no
Yeah.
motivation. And we're
Yeah.
plagued with that right now in society. And I feel like you were talking about earlier, kind of like how you were touching on it, the idea of like these crossroads. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
going into the military was a crossroad. Meeting the male influences in your life was a crossroad. Making
Yeah.
yourself better in your first relationship. And I
Yeah.
think my question for you is, do you see like a solution in terms of all these people who are hitting these crossroads? How to let them know that there's a path where like you know so right now when I go online and I see these conversations that happen, um there you were talking about how you fell in love with a kid who wasn't yours.
Hmm.
A lot of
Yeah.
people nowadays, if you go online, a lot of people look down on that. And they're like, "Oh, it's not your kid." You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of weird stuff. To me, it's like, "No, I
Yeah.
celebrate that. I have 3 kids
Yeah.
that weren't mine." You know what I mean? And
So,
I love them.
so the, there is, a way, there is a solution, to, you know, to see it. You have to understand that these things don't happen to you, they happen for you. They happen for you, and they're to make you better. You're not the problem. You have to take the focus off of you being the center of the universe and being, oh, it's all, they're hurting me. No, they are broken people too. And these broken people break people. Hurting people hurt people. And as a young kid, I didn't realize that until, I met these men in my life. And if someone is willing to come along the way and say, hey, I love you enough to tell you the truth, you're going to have to be like, okay, if this is what someone else sees, then I'm going to have to accept it instead of being prideful and be like, well, that's not me. Well, other people can see me better than I can see myself. I can look in the mirror and see myself, but my actions reflect, my character. And when I judge a man, I don't judge them by the content of their skin or what they say. I judge them by their content of their heart and how they treat others and how they view life and they appreciate life, cherish the ones in their life, or it's all about them. And you can, yeah, I mean, you're around a lot of people. You can see that in today's society and how many people do that.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's, I mean, that's the solution, is being able to be teachable and accept the fact that you're not perfect. You have sin, you have areas that need to grow. And it's okay. It's okay. We are all sinful. It's perfectly normal and it's perfectly okay. But accepting that and say, okay, well, where do I need to grow? What do I need to work on? in being teachable in those areas. And it's like peeling back a layer of an onion. It's not going to be, you're not going to cut to the core right away. It's one layer at a time. It's one journey, one adventure at a time. And that's the beautiful part of growth.
Yeah, it's just that all the, to me, it seems like all the messages and all the narratives that people are exposed to and all the things that people are exposed to are more damaging than helpful. So it's like, where do people find that? But I guess what you were touching on earlier, even though you didn't say it specifically, was just lead by example. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you're a good, if you're a good person and you go out there and you put that in the world and you help people when you see them needing help, and when you step up to the plate, the smallest actions sometimes have the biggest effects.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I'm driving down the road. I mean, we live out in the country, and I mean, when I say I live out in the country, I mean, my closest neighbor, I mean, I can see their front porch light, and it's like probably 10 acres. And that's the only light we have. We don't have a porch light. I put a light out here in the back porch. We don't have any light. It takes me, to anywhere we go, it's 35, 40 minutes. I can't tell you how many times I'm going to work or on the back roads, someone's tire fell off and I'm on the way to work and I stop and help this man. Hey, do you need any help? Do you need a wrecker or anything like this? These little things that, we communicate out here. Oh yeah. And these guys are, thank you so much. And I got someone coming, and it's this atmosphere of like, everyone takes care of everybody out here. And that's the lifestyle. And and that's what it should be. It's not the inner city where everyone's man for themselves and everyone's trying to get money and focused on money, but your house is a dump. You have this amazing car in the driveway, but your house is a dump. I mean, the thing about responsibility as men is stewardship as well. I mean, and I think I told you this before we got on the podcast, and this is where my number one example comes from is Jesus. Despite of everything he did, Jesus worked a job for 30 years. He was a carpenter. He used his hands. He made tables. He was taking care of his mother. His father died before he even got into his ministry. So he learned everything he could from his father and took up the mantle of taking care of his mother. He demonstrated that responsibility by doing it. Hey, us men have to work. I mean, that goes all the way back to Genesis 3. That's our curse. Our curse is the ground. We are to work, not women. Women can work, and it's awesome that women do work. And I'm not saying anything against women working, but that's our curse. And you see, I don't know how many men would rather sit at home in their basement and not do anything versus actually getting and stepping up to the plate and actually working and providing. And Jesus did that. He absolutely demonstrated that. And I take that. I'm like, wow, he did that. He didn't have to. He could have done whatever he wanted to do, but he demonstrated that. And then the other part of that is my sin's my responsibility. My mistakes are my responsibility. He decided to take my sin, put it on his shoulders, and he's responsible for me. And so if he's going to do that for me, I'm going to do that for my children, because I have a responsibility to him for my wife's well-being. If she's loved, nurtured, cared for, and cherished, I have a responsible to him for my children. If they're listening, obeying, are they well taken care of? Are they provided for? Are they fed? Are they not neglected? Are their hearts nourished? I have a responsibility to make sure my finances are in order, that my house is maintained, that I'm not just going out there spending money on a TV or whatever I want, that me and the wife actually discuss where the money goes and put a name to every single dollar of what we're doing. That's what responsibility is. And then we've been just living this out.
You know what I also like about you, and we didn't really touch on this, but like in all our conversations, you're very proud of the work you do also, which is super important. Like, you understand the value of the work you do. And I think a lot of people nowadays, I know a lot of people are like, if it's not this job, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, you should have a lot of pride in the fact that you're working, you have an opportunity to work. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you do a very cool job, but I mean, it doesn't matter what the work is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. You see, the thing is, wherever you're at is where you're at. And so people don't get this. They're all stepping stones, to where God wants you to be. And when it comes to providing. And so if he's got you where he's got you, then you excel. We're never going to be perfect, and that's perfectly okay. It is okay. But I'm going to be excellent at everything that I do.
Mhm.
And if that's being on time, doing the job the best that I can with all the tools given to me, for the world that doesn't understand, I work at a power plant and I'm a control room operator. So everything comes through me. I'm controlling everything. I'm watching, 16 monitor screens and making megawatts, providing power for countless amounts of people. But the great thing is that this job, my primary job in the military was making steam and turning turbines. And now I make steam and turn turbines. I make really good money at it, and I have a decent job that takes care of my family, but I don't have a degree. I have no college debt because I have a trade. And the world society is like, you need a college degree to be something. But the world doesn't, these men and these women don't understand in society is that you still got to work your way from the bottom to the top. You got to grind. You're not going to get, this CEO position making millions of dollars a year because you don't have zero experience when it comes to actually doing it. You have to grind. And when I see it with people is that they don't want to put the work in. They don't want to put the work in because it's hard. They realize that it's hard. There's a lot of hours in my schedule. I mean, I'm home half the year, but I'm working 12-hour shifts. I haven't known anything different since 2005. Oh, well, being home looks like, it's been 12-hour shifts nonstop. So this is all that I know. And I do take very good pride in what I do. I enjoy it. I get to, see my wife and kids a lot more. And I know that they're taken care of. So it is good.
James, I appreciate you coming on, man, and the honesty
Absolutely.
and the lessons you put forward. I mean, you put out some really important lessons today. I hope like people who may have had a similar upbringing where they didn't necessarily get to experience that kind of connection early on can see that, it's out there. It doesn't have to be your biological father. There's all these positive male role models just waiting. So it comes. And
Yeah, it comes. And here's the encouraging thing, if I'm going to leave anybody with that oldest child. My oldest is not my biological, but we have, visitation and we're raising him. And he's 14 now, about to be 15. And then met my wife, and that's another child. That's not mine biologically. And I get to raise him as well. So I have two children, non-biological, that we get to raise. And, the wife's got two children, non-biological, that she gets to raise. And it's encouraging. I mean, it is out there. You can find these men, real men are looking to shepherd and take care of younger men, step up to the plate. So I really appreciate you having me on. It's, good to see your face and, reconnect, it's good.
yeah, well, it's a good example. I think you're a great example for people to see.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
What a man is. All right, brother.
All right. Thank you.